right, welcome back to another episode of My Corner of the Universe. Today, we had a great interview with Stephanie Clawson from Refuge for Women, Texas Gulf Coast, and she is, gosh, a warrior mom. When you hear her story that she tells at the first half of the episode, it is just one of those stories that as a parent you hope you never would ever go through, but the way that she handled it, her and her husband handled it as a family, I thought was just so amazing and inspiring for any other families that have to go through it. So it's one of those stories you want to listen to. And if you happen to know someone that might be going through something similar or you even suspect it, share this episode with them because it could be life changing.
For sure. And it was, like you said, impactful and deep and heavy, but also unexpected because, you usually ask
Yeah.
people like, hey, how'd you get started in this? And then the story she went into that, which was great because it set up the foundation for where she's at now and why she's doing what she's doing. But it was just like, whoa, I wasn't expecting like that story to show up right off the bat. But I love so many aspects of it because it's like I said, it's set up where she's going to, but also, this is a faith-based organization and she's a Christian woman. I'm a Christian myself, Rex. It's like good to know that Christians have problems too, and it's not the sense where sometimes people on the outside world see, people who are believers and they just think, oh, well, they have this going on in their family. It's like, yeah, dude, like we have problems just like you have problems. Yeah. And, she's not hiding from it. She's not afraid from it. She puts it up in front, gets in front of it really, so it doesn't become something that is like this hidden devil that hides down beneath. So I love that she opened up with it. I love she's open with it. And then as she transitioned to the organization Refuge for Women, this is our third podcast we've done on sexual human trafficking, and each one is deep, but it's a consistent theme because it's just so important for people to learn more about.
Yeah, it really is. And, what they're doing, their organization is different than a couple of the other organizations that we've talked to. It's really important, the backside of, the recovery side for these women. So it's just such important work. And if you're looking for an organization to donate to, gosh, your money's going to a good spot with these guys. That's for sure.
Yeah. And then they have a great movie coming out, like a short little documentary. We're excited to see that. You guys are going to want to watch. Is basically sounds like it goes through the process of online, I don't know what you call predators, grooming of kids, at a young ages of using all these, whether it's social media or gaming or all these different devices, of how people will infiltrate in and befriend kids and start to ask them questions and get more information and start the process to be able to start trafficking them. Scary, scary subject, but there is real serious danger with technology, with phones, with gaming that as parents, we need to know about so we can be ahead of it and be able to ask our kids questions, be able to monitor in the ways that we need to. And for most of us parents, like we don't know, like it's hard to get in front of it when you don't know the steps. So I'm really excited about
great tips.
Yeah, she has some great tips. She has some great tips in the episode. She'll have great tips in this video. I'm excited as a parent because, like I said, I don't know what to look out for. I mean, I know the inroad of where it can go, but I don't know the steps that takes a kid to that point. So that's why I'm excited to be able to watch this video so I know how to get ahead of it.
Great. This is going to be a great episode and a great movie for parents to watch. So share it far and wide, and I hope you guys enjoy.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of My Corner of the Universe. Today, we are joined by Stephanie Clawson from Refuge for Women, Texas Gold Coast. We are excited to be able to talk to her. We've actually interviewed a few different guests on kind of similar type of topics. So it's really important issue, and we're really excited to learn more about what Stephanie and her organization is doing. Stephanie, thank you for joining us and welcome.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. This is great.
Great. Well, first off, let's talk a little bit about you, kind of how you got started into the nonprofit sector, and then tell us more about the organization and what it is that you guys do.
Absolutely. our journey into the nonprofit sector probably isn't like a lot of people's. So we have, I don't want to call it a unique type, I don't know, story. So sorry.
That's the puppy.
Oh, you're good.
Yeah, you're
If
good.
you need to put her in the crate, you can put her in our crate. Hi, welcome
Hey.
again.
Welcome
My name is
again.
Stephanie, and I'm from Refuge for Women, Texas Gulf Coast. Our beginnings into the nonprofit sector started in 2015. So actually, my husband and I are missionaries, and we are missionaries under a sending organization called Go To Nations out of Jacksonville, Florida. And we started doing mission work in 2011 because we're good people, right? We love Jesus, we're good people, and we got invited on a mission trip, and we thought we were just going to go and do what good people do. And we arrived in Central America, and it was really an eye-opening experience of what true need is, how we as people can meet that need simply just by showing up. And it really kind of wrecked our lives. We came back from Central America and kind of thought, all right, I think this is what we're supposed to do. And we got on this journey of trying to find out how to be full-time missionaries. And that's where we found Go To Nations. We joined them in 2014 after making numerous trips to Africa and more to Central America. And then we just started fundraising, right? So if you're going to live overseas, you have to get people on board with your vision. And man, we hit the ground running. And in about a year, we were about 95% funded. And that was such an incredible achievement because that doesn't happen. It usually takes many years to get fully funded. And so we're going to spend about 3 months in Central America again to kind of tie up some loose ends that we had started there. And we had our tickets to Thailand. So we were going to move to Thailand in January of 2016. And that was it. That was our big adventure. But I'll rewind a little bit to 2 years before that. In about 2013, we have 3 children. And our middle son, we had caught watching pornography. And as parents, we just were so ill-equipped to talk about it. Nobody talks about it. No, you don't know what to say.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know about you guys. You're both dads. The manual that I got with my children, I lost, apparently.
Yeah.
It's somewhere.
Mine's still in the mail. It should be here soon, I think.
Oh, man.
It's been misplaced, and there's just no page to turn to.
Yes.
About these subject matters. And so we sat him down and we had this moment of saying, what would Jesus do? How would Jesus feel? And we shamed him, and we didn't mean to, and it wasn't on purpose, but we just didn't know what to say. And instead of his viewing ceasing, it actually continued, but in a much more secretive way. And but we walked away from that moment like high-fiving each other, like we're the best parents. And
we showed him.
we showed him, and that was just miles beyond false. And so now, right, fast forward 2 years, and here we are, and we have our tickets, and we're excited to go. And we're spending about 8 weeks at home, and before we leave. And the same son that struggled with pornography sexually assaults a young girl. And we're left in this moment of not understanding at all why it happened, right? Because we said yes. Like, wasn't there some type of like insurance to saying yes for the Lord? And I think there was such a misunderstanding of really when you step out and you really obey and really kind of give your life to the Lord, you're kind of there's a target on your back. So maybe I missed that information somewhere along the line, and I think we just sailed through this just thinking, oh, we said yes and that's it, and we're going to go on our merry way. And it wasn't like that at all. And we were faced with a really hard decision because now our sending organization has a zero tolerance for any type of sexual misconduct, which I absolutely honor. And so because he was a minor, we couldn't go overseas. But it wasn't just that, it was the fact that we knew if we ever wanted to truly recover from this moment and move past this moment, we had to be transparent. And we had to let our son know that obviously his actions are not tolerated. And we took him down to the police station and turned him in.
Oh,
And
that's
it was
probably hard.
it was the worst
Gosh.
moment. I remember sitting in the parking lot just crying and wondering, like, what have we done? Oh my gosh, we've ruined his life. And my husband made him admit without an attorney of what had happened. And we knew with our son admitting to what he did that he would be convicted. But we also knew that in order for our son to get the kind of help he needed, the conviction was necessary, because you can't go to a counselor and say, oh, I abused somebody. They would have to report it anyways. So we were just stuck in this moment of just going, okay, if we truly want to heal, we kind of have to walk through some bad to kind of hopefully come out with some good. And our son was arrested and he was convicted and he received a felony charge of sexual assault. And he had to complete an 18-month course of like, it's a course designed through the state for juvenile sex offenders, probation and counseling and all sorts of stuff. But right here we are now, we're homeless. We sold our home.
Oh,
We
wow.
sold, we rehomed our animals. We literally sold everything we had, and we're
Wow.
stuck here just going, like, now what? Like, now what do we do? And in this moment of just really feeling bad for myself, because we can do that. And a friend called and she said, hey, how's it going? And I was just not well. And she said, hey, there's this prayer group in Houston. Why don't you just get out of the house? You and Kurt, get out of your house and just go be around people. And so we did. And we showed up into the Houston area and walked in to this prayer group of about 7 or 8 anti-trafficking nonprofits, sat down in this group, listened to their heart, listened to why they're doing what they're doing, and how people can be involved. And we drove away from that meeting and just decided we felt like this is where we needed to be. And so for that first year in 2016, we just jumped in and did everything. We served wherever we could. We did interventions and outreaches. We did prevention and awareness and just everything. I mean, we were up at 2:00 in the morning picking up women from a hospital to transport them to a shelter, and
Wow.
just did everything we could. And then as the years have passed, it kind of, instead of having like this shotgun type thing where you just kind of shoot and everything's kind of spread out, we started kind of trying to figure out, like, where's our lane? Like, we know all of this, but like, where do we need to really hone in our knowledge or our experience or our gifts or our talents? And my husband and I started a ministry in Galveston County called Missionaries for Hope. So our whole idea was for prevention and awareness about trafficking. And a lot of people maybe don't understand that trafficking is a supply and demand issue. And we can meet or try to reach the supply all we want, right? We can do interventions, we can be on the street, we can be in strip clubs, we can be in illicit massage parlors. But if there's a demand for sex, then there will always be a supply.
Yeah.
And so we knew we needed to try to do what we could do to educate people about the demand. And what we found was that pornography directly fuels the demand. And then when we realized this and we sat in a training about this escalation dynamic that people get on when they start viewing pornography, and it just is, it's like a drug. Someone doesn't wake up one day and do meth, right? They start someplace, and it's the same with a person who buys another person on the street. They don't wake up one day and say, oh, I think I'm going to go out and I'm going to expose myself by driving down this road and purchasing a person. It doesn't work like that. There's an escalation dynamic. And when we found out what that was, and we reflected back on our son, is our son was on that escalation dynamic. And what we know now and what we did with him is that we essentially kind of knocked him off of that escalation dynamic by turning him in, getting him help, getting him therapy. The average age for a first buyer is 21 years old. and
Oh,
he turns
wow.
20 years old this year, and he could potentially had become a buyer. And it really impacted us because it really kind of concreted our understanding of the supply and demand, and where it kind of originates from. So under Missionaries for Hope, we did a lot of intervention still. We were trying to connect with churches and people and individuals of just talking about kind of where these two things come in at. And we do outreach on one of the busiest tracks for prostitution in Houston called Bissonnet. And we were out there, I'm going to say probably exactly 2 years ago, and just had this moment of looking at the women that we were reaching out to and just thinking, like, how can we reach them before this moment? Like, how can we talk to them when they were like 12 and 13, and how can we warn them? Like, how can we warn 12 and 13-year-olds now to not become the supply later? And we found out that 90% of grooming for sex trafficking is happening online. And when you think, I don't know, I assume we're all three kind of the same age. I don't know. And
early 20s. We're all early 20s.
Early 20s.
Yeah. We're all the same age, early 20s.
Same age.
Yeah.
You know, when I was 16, I have 7 siblings, and my house was chaos, and my mom had strict rules, and I was sick of living there. And I would call my friend, on that phone that attached to the wall that had, that cord. And you could only walk 8 feet away from the wall.
Yeah.
And so I remember calling my friends and voicing my vulnerabilities, right? I'm sick of this place. I hate these rules. I can't wait till I turn 18 and I'm out of here because I'm so smart, And when I hung up the phone, though, that's where my vulnerabilities ended. That was it. Well, nowadays, that's not what's happening. We have all these young girls with the same exact vulnerabilities. I'm too tall, I'm too short, I'm too fat, I'm too thin, I have pimples, I have this, no boys like me. Same exact. It's like a never-ending cycle of generational issues. And but now they're getting on their cell phone and they're going on to these social media platforms and they're voicing the same concerns, but they're hitting post. And what's happening is that's going out to hundreds of thousands of people that they don't even know. And people are preying on those vulnerabilities. And so, do snatch and grabs happen in trafficking? Yeah. I mean, I want to say, parents, please, keep an eye on your kid. Obviously, educate your children on the kind of the stranger danger kind of thing. But really, what's happening is that traffickers don't have to put themselves out there. They don't have to troll malls. They don't have to go to parks. They don't have to do those things. All they do is go online and start preying on the vulnerabilities of our youth, simply from their own home. And so what we thought is, how can we educate our youth on this issue, this grooming issue? What can we do and educate parents on to be more aware and to be more vigilant on what's happening on social media with your children? And we had this idea of putting together this really short film of grooming tactics. And there's literally stages that a groomer will use, like befriend and isolate and all these different stages that you can see it almost just walk out in this very brilliant manner, unfortunately. And my parents live in northern Idaho, and they have a young gentleman that was in their church, and he was kind of getting into filmography and videography. And I happened to just say, man, wouldn't it be great if Travis could come here to Texas and make a film? And we kind of had this ha 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 kind of moment. And then I think it was 3 months later, he's standing in my living room.
Awesome.
Throwing
it out there, and then boom.
Yeah, he came out, and we really didn't have a concrete plan of what we were going to do. And I asked, my daughter is in the film and these 2 other young ladies, and we shot this short film in about 6 days, had no script, just this idea of what we wanted it to look like. We wanted it to be extremely relatable and not all Hollywood. And that was it. We had 0 budget. We just kind of did what we did and made this incredible film. It's about 16 minutes long, just showing students and parents what could potentially happen when your child is approached online. And we're really proud to say, actually, last week we drove to Dallas, and there's a film festival called The Content. And so their film festival, Content 2020. And we won an award.
Oh,
for,
awesome.
Yeah, we won the
That's so
Justice
cool.
Award.
Nice.
And it was just one of those things where I think it was just foundational for Travis, who did all of the editing and original music and just did a beautiful job on it. Just for him, he's 20 years old now, and for him as a young man to find value in wanting to combat trafficking by using his gifts and talents, it was just phenomenal. So we're very proud of that moment because
where's that film located now? Is it on your site? Is it on YouTube, Vimeo? Where do people watch it at?
Actually, well, we're going to premiere it this Friday. And so it'll actually be on our ministry page called Missionaries for Hope on Facebook.
And that's a 4, right? Or FOR?
FOR.
It's FOR, okay.
Yep. And so people can go on there. So Friday evening, we're going to just premiere it and
get your popcorn ready.
Get your popcorn ready. And it's really impactful, and it's very emotional because you see like this deterioration of this young lady happen and kind of the effects that it has on her family and her friend group. But the film was made to bring attention to, like, come on, parents, like, we have to know what's going on with our students. You have to pay attention and ask questions. And it's also for students to look at that and either self-identify or see somebody in their friend group and go, oh man, maybe something isn't good. And we get, at the end of the film, we have resources and different things like that for people if you know that it's happening to somebody, or if it's you, you know. So we're really excited and proud. So definitely check that out.
What age group do you recommend showing that to?
I'm gonna say 11 or 12 and up, because that's about the age that the child receives their first smartphone, is about 11 years old. And so I think it would be great. And it's also on gaming platforms. So I'm not saying like only females should watch this, but our young men need to watch it too.
And gaming platforms too now are so cross gender. You know, it's not like when we grew up, and, you know, we're in our early 20s. So when we grew up not too long ago, I felt like video games were more of like a male thing. But now it is like all these games, like everyone just plays these games. And the thought that popped into my head was, of course, growing up, and I grew up in kind of a smaller town, Northern California. So we had kind of free range, you know, we'd ride our bikes around the neighborhood, do whatever we want. But nowadays, like, parents were like, oh, you can't do that because it's such a scary world out there. But then parents sometimes will forget that, like, what's online is probably way more dangerous than them riding their bike to the store. The chance of someone snatching them at the store, although, like you said, it is possible, is probably less likely than somebody befriending them and going through this route through an online game.
Yep, absolutely. And that's the thing that my heart really is for parents, right? Is like, parents, it is okay to parent. Like, that cell phone that your 12-year-old is using, most likely they are not paying for. And so it is okay for you to check your kid's phone, to ask, who are you texting? Who is this picture? Do you know this person? Have you ever met this person face to face? Like, it's okay, because those questions could ultimately save your child's life.
Had
a lot of
Derek had a list of apps.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, we interviewed a gentleman, Derek Scott, he did volunteers at the U.S. Institute Against Human Trafficking, USIAHT or something like that. And he was also a former sheriff. And what was his takeaways? He had this infographic that was like 9 apps to make sure you look out for if your kids have. And then the other thing he said, which was important, is he said, I'll go into people's homes and, you know, ask the parent to get their kid's phone, and they don't know how to open it because they don't even know their kid's passcode. And he's like, you pay the bill. Like, you need to, like, you have to parent. Like, you can't be their buddy. Like, you have to know their passcode, and they have to know that at any point you can take it and look at their phone. But, like, it's just another thing. Like you said, if it's hard to parent, and sometimes parents are just like, oh, that's their thing, I'll let them do it. But it's like, no, you have to take responsibility.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, I do it. So we have a 24-year-old and our 20-year-old and a 17-year-old. And so our 17-year-old's our daughter. And so I'll just randomly walk in her room and be like, hey, can I have your phone? And she kind of hands it to me, and I'll go through messages. Who is this? How do you know this person? Oh, he's in my English class, and we're doing like this thing together, this project together. And then I'll even look through her photos and say, hey, please don't take photos like this. This can be kind of provocative, or just, can you please not do this? And she's like, yes, ma'am. And so I'm like, okay. And I hand the phone back to her, and I'm like, good job. Like, that's great. I even go on her Netflix account and look at what shows that she's been watching or what she has on her playlist. And we've had a couple conversations of, like, Bailey, like, I would prefer you not to watch that. That has language in it that you don't need to hear. I mean, even though, she's in high school, but, it's kind of like, I try my best, my husband and I try. And, I think that's the thing that people say, oh, well, my kid is I teach them at home, or they go to a Christian school. So I think people or parents have this misconception that is like safe, which of course, sure. I mean, we can say, okay, but the average age of first exposure to pornography is 8. So the most disturbing word in that sentence is average, because that means it's less. And most of those are accidental exposures. Either a child mistyped something in the internet, or our son, how he was introduced when he was 12 was somebody on the school bus showed it to him on their phone. And so these are the things that's like, parents, it's not if your child will be exposed or see an inappropriate picture, but it's when. And like, are you ready for that conversation? There's a really great book out there called Good Picture, Bad Picture, and it's for like elementary students, of talking about, what do we do, what is considered a good picture and what's considered a bad picture, and what do we do? And so people always ask me like how old, like, is like too young to start talking to my children? I'm thinking, well, your kid is 6 and walking around with a cell phone. So I'm kind of like, I'll say maybe like now is a good time to do that. But really what it is, it's just like us parents, like, is the conversation uncomfortable and like horribly awkward? Like, yes, it totally is. And, and even our older son, I had to come to him, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago. And I was like, son, like, are you like going to strip clubs? And he's like, oh, like, no. So I was like, okay, like real talk. And he's like, no, I'm not. And I said, well, why not? And he said, well, mom, like every day I listen to you talk about exploitation and these women and all this stuff. And he's like, I don't want to be a part of the problem. And so that made me really happy. But then I said, well, do your friends go to strip clubs? And he's like, yeah. He's like, but what I tell them is like, my mom does outreach in strip clubs and you might see her there. So I tried to detour that. And so, hey, whatever works. But it's just these things of us parents, like just being uncomfortable a little bit, maybe, and sitting down and talking and saying, like, guess what? If you have an unsolicited photo sent to you that's inappropriate, like, that's not your fault. And we want to be able to talk with you about that. And I think as parents, if we can create this safe space in our house where our students or our kids see us as a part of the solution of the world's problems, then they'll come to us. And my daughter's done it, and she knows all about this exploitation, all about the grooming and everything. And she'll even come in and go, Mom, I accidentally mistyped something in my phone and I was really looking for this, but it popped this up. And I'm like, okay. We talk about it for a minute, and I ask her, are you all right? Do you have any questions? And she's like, no, I'm sorry. And I'm like, okay, well, you didn't do it on purpose. But I like how she comes to me. And that's another thing is she has like a Snapchat and an Instagram, and she probably gets approached 2 or 3 times a week on those platforms. People asking for nude photos, people asking to be her to be a sugar baby, and want a video chat. And this is our daughter who knows about trafficking and exploitation. And so what about that young lady that's in her room that's receiving those same messages that doesn't?
Right.
And her parents have never had that conversation with her. And she's sitting in her room and she's being abused sitting in her room by these inappropriate photos and inappropriate messages. And just as parents, I think we really just kind of need to look at it and say, like, we live in such a different culture. I was raised in the 80s, and it was different. Like, and I'll even go on record to say, like, pornography in the 80s was different.
Yeah.
Like, it was that Playboy at your uncle's house.
And the access to it, the access to it was like paper, or like people had like a video they'd have to put in a TV, and now it's just like the fact that it's just like in kids' pockets and accessible. Like, it's crazy.
It is. And I think so, with the change of that culture and the change of what is going on, this hypersexualized culture that we live in, just as parents have to take a different approach on really combating, or really being that sound voice in our kids' lives. And it's difficult because I want to believe that it's the same as the 80s, and it's not at all. And movies are different, and commercials, and just everything. So so that's kind of like that part of who we were. And about a year ago, I went to an open house for Refuge for Women Texas Gulf Coast. They had just purchased the house in southern Brazoria County on February 7th, and then had this prayer and dedication on February 8th. And I got invited because we're in that same arena, and we went, and we drove away, and I asked my husband, I said, well, they're going to have to hire people, to run that place. And what do you think if maybe I work there? Kind of like this divide and conquer kind of thing, like you on the front end doing awareness and education, and me, unfortunately, on the back end helping women who've already been exploited. And the position came up, and I just kind of threw my hat in, and hey, they hired me.
Awesome.
So we're excited because actually yesterday we received our first resident, and it's extremely exciting. She came from Wisconsin, and she spent the first night, hopefully of the rest of her life, feeling free of what she's lived in. And it's just phenomenal.
Can you elaborate a little bit on that process of kind of, they don't have to go into too much depth, obviously, if you can't go that far, but just kind of like how the organization finds somebody that's been trafficked, how they get them, and then how they transfer the refuge and then on into life.
Yeah, so Refuge for Women is actually the nation's largest aftercare program for trafficked and exploited women. And so our home, opening up yesterday, we're the 5th program house. We have another program house in North Texas, in Las Vegas, Chicago, and Kentucky. And we're opening up another house in Southern California, so in San Diego, hopefully in March, and then an emergency house in Pittsburgh. And so right now, about 40% of our referrals come from front-end organizations, such as drop-in centers, emergency centers, maybe even domestic violence or homeless shelters, women who have any type of exploitation in their past, because most times you self-identify at different times in your life. And so our program is a 12-month program at no cost to the resident, and we offer help for women 18 and older. And so this young lady who found us actually came through a front-end organization, and they Googled long-term aftercare home and found us.
Wow,
and so so like, God bless Google.
Yeah.
But then family sometimes finds us when they're kind of at their wits' end of being able to help a family member, or just all different ways. And so a woman has to be 10 days clean before she comes into our program, because we don't offer detox. But what we do offer when she gets to our house is trauma counseling, grief counseling. We're partnered with Celebrate Recovery for any type of addiction issues they have, not just drugs or alcohol, but maybe it's overeating, undereating, maybe it's codependency issues. And then we just plug her into an amazing community. The program has about 23 books that she has to read. And so it's quite a large amount of books, but the books vary from talking about abuse and neglect and violence, and how do we overcome those things. And also we talk about, like, there's a book about Dave Ramsey, and like, how do we, budget, and
like it.
And so I'm going to say about a quarter of our books, or maybe a little bit more, are faith-based. And so Refuge for Women is a faith-based nonprofit. And so ultimately we believe that the Lord is the one that heals and restores. And all we are is just kind of a vehicle of getting her to that point. We do receive women who don't believe in the Lord. Maybe they come from different backgrounds, and that doesn't matter. Religion is not forced on her, but it's introduced to her. And I think really that's just reality. I think if somebody forced me to like them, that would push me even further away. And so we just provide these moments of her to really discover like who she really is. You know, I was 13 and I lived on a farm in northern Idaho, and I wanted to be a veterinarian, right? So when I was 13, I thought that that's what I was going to do when I grew up. And that was a dream of mine. And when you think the women who have been trafficked or exploited, you know, since they were maybe 13, 14, 15, they have those dreams taken away from them. And they lose their identity of who they've been called to be, how the Lord designed them. And when they get to our place, we give them this space, well, to dream again. And I think that's the exciting part about Refuge for Women is like, do we understand there's going to be hardships? Yes. There's going to be conflict. Like there's going to be brokenness it's going to be a challenge. But what I love about Refuge for Women is that the way that the program is designed is in such a beautiful way where every phase that she goes through just grows off the previous phase. And so the first phase is really about like stability, really looking at what's going on with her medically. Does she need dental care, vision care? Does she have a tattoo from her trafficker that she'd like to get covered up or removed? Again, like who is she? Who does she want to be? What did she dream about again? And then as she moves into phase 2, then it's like, okay, would you like your GED? Like let's study to get your driver's license. Let's really kind of take that dream and put it into motion of what you want to do, and then introducing her to volunteers. Maybe she wants to write a book, or maybe she wants to paint, or maybe she wants to be a nurse, and then bringing in those volunteers to just speak that into her that, yeah, you can be a nurse and it doesn't matter where you came from. And, you know, or you can be a playwright. Like imagine a woman writing a play about where she came from and using that as a way to educate. And then phase 3 is more about really preparing her for job readiness and interviewing, and then also being able to live independently outside of our program. So it's kind of like our children. So we teach them how to cook and clean, and we teach them how to, you know, proper hygiene and budgeting, in the hopes that they will move out of our house and leave, you know, live independently of us. That's right. I said hope. And so that's the same way that the program is. And we obviously understand that restoration is a holistic effort. You can't say like, oh, mentally I'm okay, but maybe physically, like most of these women have, like I say, lived off of hot Cheetos and Monster drinks for, you know, the last couple of years, and they're wondering why they have skin issues or gut problems or their hair is falling out, because it's that old theory of garbage in, garbage out.
For sure.
So we have a nutritionalist that's going to come in and talk to them about, proper ways to shop or to pick food. And then also, you know, I had to start doing my laundry when I was like 14. And I shoved every piece of clothing I owned in the washer because I thought I'm just going to do one load of laundry. And so that didn't work. And so my mom had to come alongside me and say, this is why it doesn't work. Like you have to separate it, you have to do this. And it was a teaching moment. And we're going to have those moments in the house. A lot of the women may have never cooked before, or they don't know how to budget. They've never had their own money, or how to make a bed, or why do we make a bed? You know, what is the significance of bed making? And just every moment in the house is a teachable moment. And I think through those moments, she'll be able to step back and then really realize who she is and who she wants to become. And Refuge for Women opened, I think, 2009. And then as of 2010, they've served 225 women through their program, with graduates and women who saw value in what Refuge for Women is. And so they've gone back and got their degree. and wanting to be counselors. And so now they work for Refuge for Women, and you see this amazing cycle where they saw how it helped them and now they want to give back. And what I like about our president, his name is Ked Frank, is he really strives to serve the women with excellence. And he was really challenged with this kind of growth model of, like, it would be wonderful to have a Refuge for Women house in every single state. That would sound ideal. But he was really challenged with, how can we truly meet the needs of the women that we serve? And what he decided is, instead of growing out, he's growing deeper. And so all those 7 locations that I had said before, like Las Vegas and Chicago and Kentucky, all 7 of those locations are going to have 3 levels of care. The levels of care is an emergency house. It's a 30-day stay to really meet her immediate needs when she comes off the street. Then it's the program house, which is a 12-month program at no cost to her, where she can receive real, true, deep healing. Then it's transitional living, to where when she graduates from the program house, she goes into transitional living, where there's still a level of accountability. She's still encouraged to go to counseling. There's drug testing, just to keep her on that right path.
And I think that step's awesome right there, because I think going from completely, you're being helped by the organization to all of a sudden you're on your own without a transition can be tough.
Oh, and it is. And that's what they found early on, is like, okay, they go through this program and then what? Right. And I think when they get to that 3rd phase of the program, they start kind of, I would say, freaking out, but because now they're wondering, where am I going to stay? What am I going to eat? And then what do they go back to? What they know. Right. And that's when we saw the women going back into the life. So the transitional living aspect is just really key to their sustained healing. And so what Refuge for Women found is that when a woman comes through our emergency house, then the soft handoff to the program house, and then that soft handoff to the transitional living, that those women, 92% of them never return to the life. And that is a phenomenal number when you really think of the chances of them going back, because that's all they know. And so I'm really proud to say that, even though, yes, we just opened our doors yesterday for our program house, we are already looking to open our transitional living house by December of this year, to be able to receive the graduates that we're getting this month. And awesome. So it's a very exciting year for Refuge for Women, Texas Gulf Coast, but I'm very encouraged.
I want to go back to something you said there. Is you mentioned, do traffickers tattoo their?
Yes. Yeah. So a lot of times a trafficker will tattoo a woman, or what they would call brand a woman, as a way of just even showing that you're mine, that you're no longer like a person, you're just a product. And so a lot of the women that'll come to our home may have a name tattooed on them, or a symbol that was who they belong to, their trafficker.
Wow. Yeah. It's such a crazy aspect. And, I appreciate you really explaining the depth of the rehab process, because I think it also gives depth to the kind of breakdown that these women have to go through. I mean, it's almost like they've been dehumanized, to where, like, like you said, they're, whatever dreams they had, aspirations, that's all gone. You get them in a whole different state of mind, to where they're almost like walking zombies. They're branded. So I love that you explained how you take them out of that, because it shines light on what they went through and how deep that is.
Well, and it is, and it's truly a brainwashing tactic that these traffickers do, because if they can reprogram you into thinking that you're worthless and you have zero value, then you'll never aspire to be anything more than that. And so our program is really designed to, day by day, kind of break down that programming that had happened to them, and be able to celebrate with them small achievements, like, hey, you did laundry today. Awesome. You did such a great job. Or, man, like, you are a vacuuming queen. Like, this is amazing. And that may not sound significant to other people, but for a woman who's been told her whole life that she's nothing but a hoe, and she's never going to be anything more than that, that's when those small achievements and those small victories become just ginormous to her, because she's never been told anything other than that that's all she's worth of, is just selling her body. And so that's how our program is set up, is just celebrate those victories with her just daily. And so that's where we're at now. We start day 2 with our first resident, and just like doing life with her. And we're really excited because I think we're actually receiving our second resident on Saturday. And then I think 2
Awesome.
more, hopefully by the end of this month. And our house has the capacity of holding 8 women. And so we'll slowly, we're not a new organization, but we're a new arm. So we want to make sure that we don't rush into it and have all these problems. We really want to be wise on how, like if we get to 4 women and we feel like we're kind of at capacity with what's going on in our home, then we'll stick to 4. But if the 4 women we have are good and we feel healthy and we're kind of moving along, then we'll add some additional residents as well. So we just want the women to be healed and their healing to be sustained, not just be proud that, oh, we're adding a person to a bed. Like that's not what's important to us. The sustainability of their healing is what's important.
How do you guys get your funding? Is there any grants involved, or is it strictly donation, or what is
it? It's kind of a little bit of both. And so my job is to raise all the funds to keep the house open. That is no burden at all, none. And but what we do is we make relationships with businesses and churches and individuals, and just kind of vision cast over them of who we are and what we're doing. Now we have been given like local foundation grants through families or through different avenues. Some of the larger federal grants, because our mission statement is faith-based, sometimes we don't qualify for those because they would prefer your mission statement not to be faith-based,
which is crazy.
Is crazy, but we're still helping people. But but so we find it a little hard sometimes to get larger federal grants that way. But they're available. A lot of the larger grants have a lot of oversight and sometimes it can become almost like you're just babysitting a grant. And so we've kind of just prayed about it and thought like, hey, how can we best help our women? And I'm telling you, our community has come around us, and I mean, we've had churches just give so amazing, and individuals and businesses, and that's kind of where the majority of ours comes from, is just going out there.
As the Texas arm, do you guys have to raise all your individually? It's none of it funnels down, really?
Nope. Unless an arm of Refuge for Women is called Survivor Made, and so that's our social enterprise arm of Refuge for Women. And so each location will eventually have this social enterprise, and they applied for a grant that is about $750,000 over 3 years to help get all of the locations a social enterprise. So that is at the national level, and that will trickle down to us.
Right.
But
that's just infrastructure for the legal part of it.
Yes. And so we have to raise all of our funding at a local level.
Got it.
Oh. Like you said, no burden, easy work.
Easy work. I mean, I've not lost 1 week of sleep because of it.
Yeah. So on that message, if you feel like donating, where do you want them to go if they listen to you and they want to help out? What's the best way for people to be able to help out?
Absolutely. So you can go to our website, which is www.rfwtxgulfcoast.org. And then there's a donate button there. You can find us on Facebook under Refuge for Women Texas Gulf Coast. I think we even have an Instagram page. So hey, we're with it.
That's
and so
right.
we're on Instagram too. And then of course you can just reach out to me personally. I would love to hear from people. My email address is stephanie.clawson@refugeforwomen.org. And just if anybody has any questions or wants to know how they can get involved, or maybe they're in a different part of the country and they want to know how they can connect with one of our other homes, I would absolutely love to plug people in where they feel like they're called to be.
That's awesome. I do have one last question before we let you go, because mentioned this a while back, and I think it might be important for parents that are listening because I don't know, but you mentioned gaming platforms. How does um, that come into play?
Yeah,
With it was at the part of the grooming process.
it is. So
Okay.
what'll happen, because I know even with my sons, they wear the headset and they can talk with somebody and they don't know who those people are. It's just other gamers who jump on the game. And it's the same exact process as being approached on a social media platform. They get to know you. They start finding out kind of, hey, are you a single kid in your family, or do you have other siblings? And they'll start this friendship of going, and then isolating them through threats, or maybe inappropriate pictures have been sent, or just different things like that. So I do say women because that's the majority of people who are trafficked or exploited for commercial sex. But there are men, and there are young men that get involved in it as well. And so we can't say like, oh, I'm a mom of all boys, so I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
But guess what, mom of all boys, you need to talk to your sons about pornography, and you need to talk to them about that escalation dynamic, and you need to have those conversations on how do we honor and respect women in our life. And so just because you have boys doesn't mean like, oh, good, they're never going to be groomed. It's not like that. It's the same on gaming platforms as well, the same tactics.
And I think that's even harder to monitor than social media or their phone, just
Mm-hmm.
because on that you can actually go back and, like you said, you look at your Netflix history kind of a thing. Or with a game, gosh, you have to.
It's gone. The
It's
information's
almost like
gone.
you have to be playing the game.
Yeah.
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 Well, one of my friends, she has two younger boys, 11 and 8, and they play games, but she doesn't allow them to wear headsets. And
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so
so,
it's just coming through the
yep.
speakers. Got it.
And
Yeah.
she says she's walked by a couple of times and had to stop and say, "Who are you talking to? Like, do you know that person?" And but then they can hear her,
Yeah.
where she's talking now, and so I really thought that was a really neat
Yeah,
idea
that's a good
of,
tip.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, of maybe if you do have younger boys that are on gaming platforms, maybe just be able to hear what they're talking about, because it's inappropriate.
Mm-hmm.
So you just have to be, again, right, parents, it's okay to parent.
That's
So
true.
I'm giving you permission.
Giving it.
Awesome. Well, what you're doing is really just amazing. I mean, it's such a heavy subject to talk about, but so important.
Yeah, it is.
And I look forward to this movie coming out again.
Yeah, me too.
Can you let people know once again where they can watch that?
Yeah, it'll be on, we're going to be premiering it or putting out information on Missionaries for Hope on Facebook. And so we're actually, like, Travis is here this week because
Awesome.
he's from Northern Idaho, and we picked him up in Dallas at the award ceremony and brought him home with us, but he flies out on Saturday. But him and I are going to do some kind of hype videos leading up to Friday. And so you can find that on our Missionaries for Hope Facebook page.
And then after it's premiered, where is it going to live?
Pretty much on YouTube. And so
Okay.
our hope is that if you're a parent, you'll share it. If you're maybe a youth pastor, you'll use it. If you're law enforcement, or however, we would
What's
love
that
for,
YouTube channel going to be?
it's going to be Groomed. That's the
Groomed.
YouTube channel's
Groomed.
Groomed.
Okay.
Groomed. Okay.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to share that as well
Well,
too,
yeah, we'll
because
put
we're
all that
excited
in
about
the
that.
show notes for
Yeah.
you.
Yes, well, that's exciting. I appreciate you guys just kind
Yeah.
of hearing our vision of what we're doing and helping us spread it. So I appreciate you guys.
Yeah, you've been
Absolutely.
great
We appreciate you
and
too.
doing
Yeah,
amazing work. So
thank you
thank
so
you.
much. Well, I'm telling you, by you guys giving organizations like us this platform to speak from, you're a part of it too. So thank you for what you guys do.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.